The parody series are a genre of the comedy that have a lot of sources to use, but it has to use the most known references to be fun for more people, and with Ultimate Girls, besides parodying magical girls like some others, it also parodies the giant superheroes or Kyodai heroes genre, which was created by Ultraman and its peers. This is the story of Silco Haruno, a shy girl that when following her friend Tsubomi who wants to watch the city's superhero UFO Man, she and her friends end up too close to the action, being accidentally crushed by this hero. So, to amend his error, which he hides to the girls, UFO Man lets to Silco and her friends his powers to revive them with a collateral result. The collateral effect is that now the girls will have to replace UFO Man as the city's guardian, using a magic wand, which is the thing UFO Man transforms, to become giants to be able to fight the giants monsters. But there's two unwanted effects that have the use of these powers. The first is that they have a time limit to be transformed, because as time passes, their suits will disappear, remaining naked if they take too long. The second is that in order to use their best attack, they need the power they get as they feel ashamed, inducing the fan service. All this idea results in a comical concept, playing with the fanservice and the inexperience and personality of the girls, who will be followed by the press, including the boy she likes, Yosaku Okamura, who wants to take a picture trying to discover their identities. Besides, they put them aliases like small boobs to Silk, big boobs to her friend Viven, who is especially attached to Silk, and Lolly to Tsuomi, who is the more uninhibited girl, because she's a cosplayer enjoying her transformation. This series is a mix of magical girls and superheroines, showing the magical girls part with the wand and the transformation, mainly targeted to a male audience, because the fan service is its main feature on the story. Mayoko Tsukune-chan, despite that's a series that parodies the magical girl genre, it distinguishes because besides showing us a very simple art style, the kind of comedy is based on silly and over-the-top situations, without worrying for the continuity on the story. Besides, on the case of this series, it parodies the classical kind of magical girls, which are mostly witches like Sally and Chappie, who have powers with undefined limits, which as well as they use their powers in their own benefit, they also use them to help the people in need. The story, because it doesn't have a continuity, with each episode it's a separate story. It's mainly the misadventures of the witch Tsukune, who lives in her house outside the city, who's often visited by the mayor, who was frequently her help. Other characters who join later are Tsukune's younger sister Kokoro, who lacks the experience to control her magic, releasing it with a destructive sneeze, the rival witch Shioreta, the evil witch Nebule, and the mayor's niece Kanako. The comedy is over the top with exaggerated violence, cynical characters that sometimes break the fourth wall, pointing out some obvious plots, clichés, and stereotypes. Besides that, many of the stories are sold in radical and silly ways, showing us a good cast of characters, going from the cute to the weird ones. In conclusion, this series, despite being a comedy, it isn't intended for children, because its style. Besides, how confusing the story can be if you don't know the references used for the comedy. There are some tales that are popular around the world because its circulation and how it makes our imaginations fly, so it's common that rewrites of them are made. And in the case of EQ Alice Rondo, it takes as reference the Tales of Alice. This is the story of Haruto Kirihara, who being a huge fan of the Tales of Alice, he decides to write his own continuation, after being unable to find a third book that is rumored to exist. but one time he sees passing by very fast a girl that he sees as Alice, so he follows her, discovering how there are battles between magical girls to collect stories from inside of the defeated to make with all of them the dear book called Eternal Alice. And besides of meeting her classmate Arisu Arisugawa, which name sounds like Alice, he also discovers that his younger sister is like her, a magical girl whom they can transform in their own versions of Alice, using a magical key to transform, fight, and gather stories. And despite that the battles are made in alternate confined dimensions, so the magical girls can be seen and distract, Naruto shows that he has some kind of special power, being able to enter the battle areas, maybe because his passion for Alice, showing later the skill he gets with that power. On the backstory, there's a man that's monitoring the magical girls and is related with their powers, and maybe he's related with the author of the Tales of Alice, who is called Tachyon in this series. This series it mainly belongs to the harem genre, since it shows a boy with a weak personality, living with many attractive girls interested in him, but with a story of magical girls fighting each other, like in Nanoha, so obviously it's aimed to a male audience. With the popularity of the Magical Girl series, it became a well-known genre and in consequence easy to parody. Besides that, it's an easy way of making a comedy series, because it's the kind of comedy that have had some kind of success, joining simple and even predictable stories, with features that are visually attractive, common on the Magical Girls. With this idea, we get the Daimaho Toge series, also known as Magical Witch Punie-chan, that follows the daily adventures of the magical girl Punie, that as in another series, she's sent to the human world as a test to become the successor of the actual queen of her world. Something that makes different this series is its kind of black comedy, violent and sometimes acid, similar to Dokuro-chan, where everyone and everything that's pretty or cute has a twisted side, sadic, rough, and violent, from things as simple as the magical phrase and wand to the way the characters act, mostly the ones from the magical world. So in addition of using their magic to cause mischief, everyone ends up fighting physically, using lethal combat techniques like Punie, who's an expert in grappling and torsions to break bones and twist articulations, becoming a very violent and explicit spectaculish combat, besides having a very volatile relationship between the characters, going from kindness to hatred to death in an instant. Definitely a series not suitable for kids and not recommended for an audience mostly of girls, because it's violent contents and it's kind of comedy. There has been Magical Girl series that for its theme and even for its story, they had inspired in many kinds of sources, from tales and mythology to famous characters, fictional and real. But Powerpuff Girls C, it's different because it's a rewrite of another animated series made in the US. This series, despite that follows the stories of the original series, introduces its own variations that gives more logic and continuity to the story and its characters, but without losing its fantastic, adventure, and comical features. The difference in this series is that the three main characters, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, are their identities as superheroines, because instead of being created by Professor Utonium, they instead receive their powers from him when being accidentally hit by a ray from the Chemical X that changes to Chemical Z during a test. So we have that the previously normal girls, now with a belt that activates their powers, they transform in the classic and flashy magical girl style, turning Momoko into Hyper Blossom, Miyako into rolling bubbles, and Kaoru into power buttercup, having as weapons, besides their superpowers, a yo-yo, a bubble-making ring, and a mace or hammer respectively. The girls' personalities also are very similar to the originals, with Momoko as the leader, easy lover and playful, Miyako tender and kind, and Kaoru rough and athletic. And this is used in the series to tell, also inside the stories, their lives as normal girls who have a school life with families, friends, and love interests, reminding that here they aren't related. The Powerpuff Girls C team is united and created thanks to Professor Utonium and his son Ken, when locating the girls that, because of their fall, they got powers from the white ray from the chemical C, and they make the team to fight and purify the characters that were affected by the black rays that also came out of the same chemical, turning them into evil characters with powers that end up being a different version of the known villains like Mojo Jojo, the Gangrene Gun, the Princess, or the Rowdy Rough Boys, besides some new ones. This series visually has a very flashy and nice aesthetics when they merge the protagonists with magical girls and giving everyone a more human look in the particular style that the anime shows, with catchy music, a series recommended for every audiences. The themes that are inserted mainly on magical girl themes are many times interesting and a feature that makes attractive its visual aesthetics, like in Sailor Moon, Wedding Peach, and Mermaid Melody, using that as a pretext to give direction to the stories and create their own universe. Saint October in this case is based on the noir and art deco visual aesthetics, and also on the symbolism and mystic of divination and tarot cards, achieving a mix that creates a strong environment and magic and mystic characters in a more modern world. This is the story of Kotono Hayama, a girl that together with her friend Natsuki help on the private detective agency directed by Koshiro Kuroki, and using the technology provided by Natsuki, they solve the most important cases at the moment. One day Kotono meets a lost little boy outside of the church where she lives, and he has lost his memory, remembering only that his name is Iwan. And he's more than what it looks, because he's pursued by employees of the Reverse Company, the great corporation that owns most of the businesses on Arcana City, because he possesses great magical powers, sharing some of them to persons he chooses. So Iwan ends up living with Kotono as Joshua's church, also helping on the agency, eventually giving tarot-based magical powers to the girls, including Misaki, who joins them later, having as their identities Kotono of Black Loli related with the Judgment card using a sword, Natsuki of White Loli related with the Moon card using nunchucks, and Misaki of Loli Red related with the Strength card using a bow and an arrow. Their outfits, when transformed, are based on the Gothic Lolita style, and their enemies from the Reverse Company also use tarot cards to get their powers, receiving all of them too an outfit with a Gothic and mystic style, like characters on cards. Essentially, the story will follow the constant confrontations of the Loli team versus the employees of Reverse, because, besides going after Iwan, the girls will solve cases in which they'll be involved, having their magic nullified by them. This is a light series that mixes adventures, a little of drama and comedy, since it doesn't take too seriously many situations on the series, that is attractive for its visual aesthetics and its cast of characters, which results in a weird and fun mix.